Welcome to Expand Your Empire, the podcast where women stop deferring wealth and start building financial power. I'm Amanda Taylor, investor, strategist, and disruptor of outdated money rules. It's time to own your worth, grow your assets, and build a legacy that lasts. Welcome back to the Expand Your Empire podcast. Today's episode I'm very excited about. I have a guest today, and all the way we crossed time zones and everything. I had the honor of meeting my guest in Northern Ireland a couple months ago, I think. And we just found out we're going to be in New York together next month. So this is very exciting. Today's episode, even though we're very happy and excited, it is a deeply important one. We are talking about financial abuse, what it is, how to recognize it, and how to break free from it. This topic is close to my heart because I lived it, even though I didn't know it. I didn't know it had a name. I didn't know what I was experiencing. And that's why I wanted to talk to our guest today, someone I knew who does not only understands it, but she works with people professionally in this. So Claire Auchmuty is Northern Ireland's first professional relationship and divorce coach. That is a big thing. She supports men and women navigating the complexities of the relationship breakdown, whether asking, should I stay or should I go? Or moving through divorce into a life that feels free and alive. And I love that. With her background in nursing and leadership and coaching, she brings a rare blend of compassion and clarity and practical guidance. So Claire, I am so excited you're here. Welcome to the Expand Your Empire podcast.
Thank you. What a joy. It is so great to see you again, having just met in
Yes.
Ireland on my home turf. And yes, I'm very excited for this.
Yeah, well, I love your story. We got to talk a lot when we were in Ireland, and it's not just your professional expertise. You lived it. And I think that then you turned it into a calling. You went from, 36 years in nursing, you were leading emergency departments, and now you're this professional relationship and divorce coach. Tell us kind of what pulled you into this.
So I was just saying to you earlier, 5 years ago this week was when I signed up and paid for my first divorce coach training, never thinking I would leave nursing, never ever intending to run a business. I knew nothing about that. So this is a really full circle moment for me, actually, being able to talk to you about this at this particular week. So I was married for 19 years to a church minister in Northern Ireland. And so that's quite a thing. The culture here, there's a lot of faith, a lot of shame and guilt attached to divorce. It's not a word that's talked about very often, even though it's far more prevalent now. And when we were married, we did IVF and had miscarriages over the years. So we'd had lots of ups and downs. I was a nurse, as you've just said. I trained in Dublin as a children's nurse and worked there for 6 years, and then moved into the north of Ireland and spent 20 years in emergency departments, 16 at management level, and taught on children's trauma courses. So I was always my nursing role part-time, minister's wife, and then we had our two amazing boys. They're now 14 and 16, not IVF, which was amazing. And there was lots going on in life, but I find I was a little bit of a superwoman, doing everything for everybody else and really didn't have an awful lot of time for me. And what I found over time was my stretched elastic got to the point when it was going to snap. And I didn't know what to do about that. So I did lots of different things over the years, but I got to a point about 3 years before I left my marriage that I went to see a counselor because I thought, I don't know what I need. I don't know what's wrong, but this doesn't feel good. And so, when you can't articulate something, you start somewhere. And I have found in my experience, we always end up in front of the right person who knows what we don't, can see what we can't, and can show us. And that's what I do in what I work at now. So it took about 3 years for me to understand my world, and I made changes for me. I gave my ex-husband an ultimatum about 1.5 years before I left. That definitely shook things up, and we went to marriage counselling and things improved. And then over time, they started to slide back into the patterns that I had been familiar with and used to. And I just got to the point when I thought, I don't doubt that he loves me, but his love wasn't healthy for me. I didn't know how to change who I was. And I thought, we have 2 kids and they deserve one functioning parent. And I am going below the radar with too much. So I decided to step out of my marriage. So being a small town, Northern Ireland ministry, that wasn't easy. And also we lived in the church house. So I made a decision. I had already changed my job and got a new job. So no night duty, no weekends. So it meant that I could live with the children on my own. So I moved out of the house into an apartment with the boys and had no idea how to do it. I just knew what I didn't want. And what I've discovered in my journey since then is my starting point for real change has always been becoming fairly clear on what I don't want. Because sometimes trying to figure out what we do want is just that stretch far too far. We haven't got the capacity to have scope for it. It was a really difficult journey. I didn't know who I needed. I didn't know how to prioritize anything. Certainly didn't know how to regulate my emotions. I didn't understand what was happening by way of the interactions between me and my ex-husband because it was very difficult. And so over time, my mum passed away. My dad had dementia. I was working in my new job as a respiratory nurse with a GP practice. And after about 5 years, I thought, I do not love GP practice. And I loved A&E with a passion. And I thought, I don't want to work the next 10 or 15 years in something I'm not passionate about. And I didn't want to work full time. And I didn't want to do agency at weekends. So I thought, right, there's the I know what I don't want. So I started to look and go, well, what would I like? What am I good at? What are my skills? And I looked at counseling courses, coaching courses, nothing fitted. And then I broke my ankle during COVID. And I had lots of time to sit with my foot up, looking at an iPad, scrolling away. So I did, and I found this course to train to be a divorce coach. And I was like, what is that? And it was an online course from a woman in England. And when I looked at it, she said, if you are a coach and you want to add this to your repertoire, or you've been through a divorce. And I was like, postcard and t-shirt. So this week, 5 years ago, I signed up. Since then, I have done a diploma in divorce coaching. I have done NLP. I've done lots of other different things. And I got to a point three years ago when I just thought, I have a foot in two camps. I had some paying clients for coaching. I was still a part-time respiratory nurse, but I wasn't actually enjoying either, and I wasn't doing either justice. So I then thought, what am I going to do? So I decided to put everything into one basket. So I handed in my notice. So single mum, mortgage, two boys, leaving a permanent pensionable job. Not maybe the wisest thing in the world, but I knew what I didn't want. And I didn't want this lukewarm bath. It was like as if I had a foot in two lukewarm baths. It wasn't bad for me, but it wasn't doing anything for me. So the day after I left nursing, I cut up my nurse's uniform with the scissors. And I thought, if there is no plan B, plan A just has to work. And I joined a business training in England. So I flew to London once a month with a friend of mine for business training because I thought I need to be around people who know what to do because I had no idea how this worked. I also, interesting because of your connection with me, I worked with a financial coach in a program that she had for a year to understand my money patterns and generational trauma because I thought I need to figure out why I do what I do if I'm going to run a business. So I put lots of extra training in for me, all of which I can bring to my clients. So when I look back, for me, it's quite obvious I can't help the version of me 9.5 years ago, but I absolutely can help other people avoid the pitfalls, understand what their world is like. I believe in two things. I believe that there is power in a better question. So having done 20 years in emergency department, if we didn't ask better questions, somebody could have died in the waiting room. So I truly believe that a better question allows us to find better answers, allows us to keep people safe and to help them. And the other thing that I believe is that when we understand something, we have the capacity and ability to manage it differently and to integrate it and to make better decisions without confusion. Our clarity for making decisions and figuring out what's important really shifts and changes. So in my nursing role, I always worked with the student nurses, student doctors, and patients by explaining to them what was going on. So when I look back, I spent 36 years navigating families through trauma and crisis. I just do the same differently over here. I'm doing the same thing with families. And the amazing thing now is I have clients all around the world, and I have the most amazing privilege that every client I work with, I get a part in changing their legacy. Because as we change as humans, the ripple effect goes to our children, it goes to our friends, it goes to our family. And I've literally seen the impact of that in my children's life. And that is a huge privilege. So I feel really honored to do what I do. I don't ever take it for granted when somebody invites me to walk part of their journey with them. And I describe it and say, when you're building a house and extending it, you need scaffolding and you need different parts in different places. So I'm part of the scaffolding in somebody's journey, along with a solicitor, maybe a mediator, maybe a financial coach, depending on what they need. And I signpost a lot. My clients get signposted to resources of people, books, different things as they need it. And I'm part of a story, but just a part to get someone on their feet with the emotional understanding, ability to make decisions, trust themselves again, and figure out what might they like in the future? Because the grief and loss of this can overwhelm you. But if you go through all of that, there's such a sadness in my heart if somebody stays there because they deserve better. And I believe that as humans, we have a right to feel alive and live with freedom in whatever way that looks like. So that's the nutshell of me.
That's and that's why I love your stories, because you had to live in it, and that's perfect. The I knew what I didn't want.
Mm,
And you're right. Sometimes we don't have the capacity. I had been asked so many times, if you could pick your dream life, your dream goals, what do you see yourself doing in 5 years? I hate that question. I'm like, I don't know. I
yeah, it's
can't
really hard.
I can't put that into a feeling or words or anything. Like, I have an overarching view maybe, but you're right. It's like, I know what I don't want to be doing. I know
Yeah.
where I don't want to be. I know what patterns I don't want to be repeating. And that's such a great lens through which to look at things. And it gives you kind of more freedom. It's not so much pressure. It's like,
Yeah,
think.
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And it also gives you something solid beneath your feet. Something solid. So when I know what I don't want, I turn 180 degrees and I go, right, okay. Now, the two questions that have changed my life that I give to all my clients is, what is the easiest way to do this? Because I had a whole degree and PhD in making my life difficult all on my own. I didn't need another human to do that. I did
Yeah.
that myself. So I had to train my way out of it because I know that whatever question we ask our brain, it searches our world for an answer. So if we ask better questions, we get better answers. So I always now go, what's the easiest way to do this? And my second question is, who do I know who can help? So when I'm stuck with tech or I want to start a podcast, I'll be giving you a ring going, okay, Amanda, how did you start? What do I need? Because that will make it easier for me and give me support along the way. And these are things that the version of me 9.5 years ago didn't know. And the reason when I look back is there's this sense of independence, and independence is wonderful. But there is a thing that maybe some people have heard or not heard of hyper independence. And hyper independence is where I lived. Yeah. And it's a trauma response.
Yep.
And it is this, I have to do it on my own. I can't let people in. I'm capable. I will. And actually, we are made for connection. We're not made to figure it out on our own.
Yeah.
And when I look back, that is what made my journey so hard. So I know when somebody books a discovery call with me, what it took for them to make that call. Because stepping into that, regardless of whether they choose to work with me or not, that's irrelevant. The fact that they have actually booked a call to step out of independence is massive. It's a
Yeah.
huge win for their future self.
Yeah. Asking for help, seeking resources.
Yeah.
It not even admitting, but maybe it is a bit of admitting that I don't have it. I don't have it
Yeah.
all together. I need help. It is not a weakness. It is actually a strength. And we need more
It
people
is a strength. Yeah.
to get that. So one
Mm.
of the things, we talked on the phone a couple weeks ago that we wanted to dive into when we talked on this episode was financial abuse.
Yeah.
Now, like I said, when I went through it, I didn't have a language for it. I just knew something wasn't right. Now, for someone listening who maybe doesn't realize what that is, how would you define financial abuse?
Okay. So I define financial abuse as you're in a relationship with somebody and you are not free or you don't feel free to spend your money in whatever way you want. Now, that doesn't mean somebody says you have no access to that. It's far more subtle than that. It
Mhm.
might be something like you might decide that you'd like to go on a holiday with your girlfriend for a weekend away, and your partner might say, oh, Really? I don't understand why somebody would want to go away without their partner. And that doesn't make sense to me. And so there's a real subtlety in the manipulative way that that is said. So that means that you're less likely to make a decision to go because you feel slightly guilty and you don't want them to feel bad. So there's a whole manipulative pattern. So there's a scale in between that goes, explain to me why you spent £5.20 at a car park in this place a week ago because he's just found the ticket or she's just found the ticket because a lot of my
Mhm.
clients are men, so it can be
Right.
men too. And it's almost like you're guilty until you prove to them that you're innocent. But that's never going to happen because they don't want you to be innocent because they want to know why did you do this and they didn't know about it.
Mhm.
Or if you make a decision to buy something for the house and they go, we don't need that, send it back. So it is this feeling of freedom to be able to choose what to do with money that you have earned.
Mhm.
Or if you're in a relationship with somebody and you're not actually employed outside the home, so you don't have your own money, and somebody says, I'm going to give you $100 a week or £100 a week, and that's not enough. And you then have to feel like you have to go cap in hand to ask somebody. There's no equality in that.
Yeah.
There's a whole mismatch in energy. So for anybody listening in your world, equality and financial normality looks like money is transparent, accounts are open. And if you say, I'd really quite like to do this, there's a conversation around, is that a wise way to spend our money? Does it work with our values? All of those things. You know, if you want to blow it on a round the world cruise for yourself, well, I can see why someone would have a problem with that.
Yeah.
But this feeling of having to justify why you're spending something, that is a red flag for me. And
Yeah.
it can be small things as well as big things.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, and then I'll give kind of my example. I had a business and I was using a personal credit card and then reimbursing myself from the business. And that was freaking him out. Like just too much going on here because he was very controlling over the expenses. But I was like, it's zeroing out, I promise. And couldn't handle it. So, okay, I will get a business credit card. I will open up a business account. You won't see anything. Well, then he was like, I need all of the passwords to all of your business accounts. I need to be able to see it. And I'm like, you just told me that you didn't want to see it. It was stressing you out. But he was like, no, I need every password to all of your business accounts that he had nothing to do with. This wasn't his business. He had nothing. And I was like, I don't think that's normal. It just little things like that. And when I wanted to invest, I got into real estate investing and I was very excited about this. And then I was learning more tools that could make it even better, different investment strategies and doing things, you know, I call them alternative investments. They're not what we all grew up doing here. Everybody gets
Yeah.
their 401k or IRA, you put it over here and you walk away and you do your thing. And I wanted to do something different. And when I explained it, I was like, let's take out a home equity line of credit. Let's use that and we'll loan it to other people and we'll get this arbitrage on the interest and we'll do all these things. And he was like, no, I don't want to do that. No, we're not doing that. I'm like, we have perfect access. This is safe. This is collateralized. This is all the things. And it was a no. And it was with the underlying thought of you don't really know what you're doing. We're going to trust the professionals on this. You're not smart enough to figure this out. This is like a
There's an under the radar type of a thing going on.
right.
Yeah.
So maybe there are patterns that people miss because it doesn't seem like abuse in the traditional sense.
Yeah.
And you're right. In a relationship, there is mutual respect and shared values and goals that come with finances. Those are conversations that need to be had.
Mhm.
And we have to share those things with each other. There are couples that have separate finances, and I'm all for that if that's you want to keep those separate, but when you have shared finances, you have to have those conversations. Does respect is different than control and
Yes, it
having
is.
those
Yeah.
conversations. Being questioned on things, not if you feel like you're not able to access accounts, maybe you're on the different side. That was my business. He wasn't part of the business. But what if it's your personal accounts and you don't have access to those accounts? Like, is that a problem? I think you should be have access to your accounts. If you're left financially vulnerable, what if something happens and you don't have access to those accounts? I think it's amazing how quickly you start doubting yourself when you're you're in that situation and someone's always second guessing you or questioning you, and then you feel like you have no power to
It
make those
completely
choices.
causes you, yeah, it causes you to actually not trust yourself to make a decision. But the other thing that came to mind when you were talking about that is I know quite a few people who have no idea what their partners earn. Now, that's a problem for me because why would somebody hide that information? If you share everything and there's an openness and transparency, why would both parties not know what each other earns or where you're saving? Or so a money conversation at the very beginning is really, really important. And it's also important to look at where did you come from in your family of origin? What was normal over here, and where did your partner come from? Because listening to your story, it's one thing for somebody to say, I mean, if your husband or ex-husband had said, or your partner had said, I'm really scared about this. I'm a bit freaked out. I'm not quite sure how to cope with my emotions. That's a different conversation for you to input rather than, no, we're not doing it. So it is to do with how things are worded and is there openness. So I look at questions and comments like that, and I would say there's two big types of question. One is critical. Why are you doing that? It comes with this edge and this tone that's designed to make us shrink and feel small. And we can feel that. So why did you do that? It's not an open-ended question. It's a tell me now, and it has to agree with something that I want it to line up with. And we feel it. We feel like we're in a firing line. A curious question, on the other hand, is, oh, I see you've been here. I'm just wondering, what were you at? I didn't know, so that's a curious question. It doesn't incite the same feeling of firing line within us. So I think one of the things that I've noticed over time doing what I do is that we don't give our bodies enough attention. We can talk ourselves into and out of everything because we can make logical sense out of so much. And if you put a lobster into cold water and you bring it to the boil, it normalizes to everything. And we can excuse it, minimize it, justify it to our friends, to ourselves as our way of coping. But if we listen to our bodies and go, where do I feel that? What do I feel? Generally, my experience is there's a feeling of walking on eggshells, afraid, wanting to shrink, wanting to go into a corner, wanting to leave the room, not liking this. So there's a really big part of us as humans that I'm beginning to realize we miss a lot of. We
Mm.
are a thinking brain, but we are a feeling body. And where the two don't match up, we have a misalignment,
Yeah.
which is why this whole sense of listening to your gut, in my opinion, is the most important thing that we override. We override our gut a lot. And I don't know what your experience is, but I know in my experience, I overrode my gut. Probably
Hmm.
knew I was doing it in some of the cases. Some cases I didn't because I normalized. But now I lean into my gut much faster because our gut knows what is inherently in our best interest to keep us safe, whereas our brain's way of being safe is what feels familiar. So that can be good for you, bad for you, toxic, healthy, it doesn't matter. It's just you've survived it, it's familiar, so your brain goes, oh, it's familiar, so it's safe. But it's just not that simple because that's a very
Right.
archaic way of looking at the world. So when we feel where we're feeling it, we can go, okay, this isn't matching this. Now, what's going on? Why is that? And without any awareness, we don't have change.
You're absolutely right. And I wish this skill was taught so much younger. I am
Yeah, you and me
47
both.
years old and I started learning that this year. And that's the thing is we've been taught one way to logically analyze things and make our pro and con
Yeah,
list and does the math add up? And that is how we make decisions. And you're right. We ignore the feeling because on paper this looks right or however you
yes,
want to look at it. But even in this context, financial abuse, it's not just about the money. It's controlling your choices. It's your confidence and your identity. You talked about money story. It just continues those patterns because again, you start to doubt yourself and how you make those decisions and it does internalize those things. So you're
yeah.
right. You feel a certain way about something, so you stop moving one direction or another, and it just determines how things continue to flow. So
Mm.
let's talk about freedom then.
Okay.
And the good side. When someone does realize or acknowledge or think they're being financially controlled, what are the first practical steps they can take? I know, like in my own journey, when I don't even know that I noticed it so much, but that was one piece of the puzzle for me in my marriage. And I know you had many death by a thousand cuts, let's say, in the
Yeah. Yeah,
in
little
the
T trauma, they call it now.
yeah, little T
Yeah.
trauma. So I had my business accounts, but I did end up opening a new personal account that I had to start putting some funds in to be able to do what I needed to do to leave. And I think you
Yeah.
probably had to do the same. So and then you started talking to someone, just reaching out for getting help. What do you recommend as a starting point if someone realizes that they need to break free?
Okay, so the first starting point I would always say to somebody is take stock of your world. Just look at the whole world, because as you rightly said, it's not just one area. So the big thing for me is if you imagine two magnets and one of them has the word connection, you know, the big U-shaped magnets that you see in cartoons
Yep.
and things. One of them is connection and one of them is power and control. They cannot be in the same space. It's not possible because two magnets cannot join together. So if you have power and control in one area, like finances, it's going to be in others. You just don't notice it maybe as much because this is such a much bigger thing. But it definitely is there, and connection is not going to be there. But when we have this in our world, we disconnect from ourselves as well. So
Mhm.
the first thing that I would be suggesting is start to look at your world and notice that. Really start to notice that. What else do I see if I'm looking to learn more about my world? Because it widens up it's like as if there's blinkers on and this has all been okay and suddenly it's not okay. So you widen it up and go, okay, so how is my world? And you start to look at your finances and go, do I have access to any money? Does all the money I have that comes in have to go into this account? And there are times, I mean, I have a client and we were talking about this, and she really wanted to start putting money aside and she didn't know how to explain it. So in her business, there was a training course she wanted to do, which was £4,500. So we decided together that her putting a savings pot for this training course
Mhm.
allowed her to legitimately put money away without a threat, for her to know that she was building up some resources. There is always a way. We just sometimes have to find it. And that's not being dishonest, that's being
Yeah.
really wise, because what you're doing in that situation is keeping yourself safe from somebody who is not a safe person for you. So
Yeah.
starting to look at your finance and go, is there anywhere that I can start to put some money aside into something different? Whether you keep it in cash somewhere, whether you open a separate account, it doesn't really matter where it is. It's that you know you have access to some cash. And then I would usually say to somebody, try and see if you can see a solicitor. I'm not sure what it's like in the States, but over here, most solicitors and lawyers will do a half an hour free or an hour's free call to just find out, what do you not know that if you knew it would make a difference?
Mhm.
So I was on the radio in the south of Ireland recently, and we talked about, should every female have a secret stash running away fund? It's a very hot topic. And I explained about financial abuse. And I said, in that situation, if you're aware of anything, and even if you don't notice financial abuse, if there's control in any other area in your life,
Yeah.
it's not a good idea. It's a really wise idea to start having something that is yours, because somebody who doesn't have any resources is limited in the help and support they can bring into their world from a practical level. And
Mhm.
so help and support, generally speaking, is going to cost some money after you've done a free call or, whatever it happens to
Mhm.
be. The wisdom would be, is it possible to start putting some money aside in some which way? Or do you have parents or a friend who might be able to lend you money if you needed it? There are always ways around things, but becoming aware of your situation and understanding, okay, so in the world that I'm in, it is possible for me to put this amount aside. That's one situation. If you're in a situation where every single penny is accounted for, then trying to figure that out is too difficult. But finding out what you need to know from a solicitor is a really good idea. If you're not working, you might be entitled to legal aid, certainly in this country, but also find a friend, somebody you really trust. It can be a family member or a friend. Do not try and do this alone. Because most times what happens is nobody has any idea this is going on. And from the outside, it might look like you have the perfect marriage.
Mhm.
And people will go, oh, that can't be the case. And the difficulty that somebody has if they're in the position where they notice this is the first thing that they will think of is, nobody will believe me. And I would say, what if somebody did believe you? If you tell someone that you really know and really trust, why would they disbelieve you? What reason would they have to disbelieve you? So that thought of nobody will believe me often stops us. But when we take something out of the dark and out of secret and verbalize it out, first of all, it makes it feel less big. That's a huge thing. And second of all, it brings somebody into our world to walk alongside us. They mightn't be able to fix it, but it means that you're not alone. And when we have connection with another human being, we start to connect to ourselves again. And this is what starts the shift. It's a journey, it's a process, but the first step is the best step you can ever take on a journey of change.
Yeah. And that, I love that. And that's another form of subtle abuse. And it was when I was talking about leaving, it's like, you're, no one's going to, whatever the end of that
Yes,
sentence
yes.
is,
Yes.
whatever that sentence is. And it's simply not true.
No, it's not.
And I found that immediately. No one cared. By the time I got to it, no one cared. Um, Not about me, but that all the things that he said were so untrue. And you're right, finding someone, and I've said it before on this podcast, I say to my coaching all the time, whether it's business or anything else, you can't read the label from inside the jar.
No.
And so everything that you're telling yourself, you're so close to, you've got all these thoughts going inside of your head, but one person looking at your situation from the outside, like you said, is going to be able to tell you, just do this one thing. Here's your first step. Here's an easy, just first step for you. And it's going to be so clear to them because they're not in it, but it's so helpful to you to take that advice. And it may seem easy to them, yes, because they're outside of the situation, but listen and take, because don't talk yourself out of taking that easy step because you're too close to the situation, and find that person. And I do believe you're right. That's the power of coaching and
Yeah.
finding someone who, like you, is trained in this, who has not only trained and gotten all the certifications, but has been through it. And that is why I love the coaching industry overall, for the most part, with the caveat, not
Yeah.
TikTok coaches, not 18-year-old life
Yeah.
coaches on TikTok, but
I hear you. Mm.
but most coaches I know got into it because they have done it. They
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
walked it, and they have come out the other side, and they have learned so much and become so passionate about helping others. That is where they ended up. And that is the power of it. And so, for anyone who's listening and questioning if they're in a financially abusive situation or otherwise, you talk about the power of a better question. What is one powerful question they can ask themselves today?
So I think the best question for that would be, is this healthy for me? Because healthy is a really easy question to find a yes or no to. Is this healthy for me? Feeling like this, living like this? Because what that question does is it starts to help you notice your world a lot more, a lot differently. Well, what does healthy look like? Does it look like that I feel like I can make any decision that I want to? Does it look like my physical health as well? Because so often when there's any sort of abuse, our physical health goes down. So we live in a fight or flight, our cortisol levels go up, and our immune system goes down, so we get sick. An awful lot of people I come into contact with don't realize that their sickness is actually linked to their relationship.
Mhm.
It's part and parcel of it. That's why what I say to people always before a call of a discovery, I say, I would love to hear some of your story so I can see what you can't. Because you and I can see what other people can't, because we have the benefit of hindsight. But you only
Mhm.
get that benefit when you're on the other side.
Yeah.
Otherwise, my journey would have been a lot easier. But
Mhm.
equally, if I hadn't had my journey the way it was, I wouldn't be able to do what I do now. And so every step of the way, I'm grateful for every part of my story because everything I have learned, I can pass on to somebody else. And I can go, oh, there's a pothole here. Let's walk around it. I can show people what I can see. And so I think, is this healthy for me will help somebody in their own world to define what does healthy look? Does it mean, are you sleeping well? Are you eating okay? Do you feel sick? Do you feel anxious? It'll start to show you stuff in your world that you haven't been aware of. And without a shadow of a doubt, the two biggest things in a divorce journey that create the most amount of stress and anxiety are finances and children.
Yeah.
Absolutely across the world over, regardless of our culture. If there are no children involved, it's the finances. If there are children, it is, will I have my children X amount of time? Will they take the children away from me? And where will I live and what will I do? So both of those are massive. And I know when I left my marriage, because I had to move out of the house that I lived in, I didn't know would I have enough money to manage, but I knew what I didn't want. And I thought, I'll figure it out. And I didn't realize that I was entitled to different social security benefits. Never entered my head that I would be. So we don't know what we don't know. So finding out and talking to people to figure out, well, what do I not know that will help me to make a good decision? Now, the one other thing that I think is really important in this conversation is the idea of safety preparation. If you have somebody in your world who's controlling, especially over finances, they will be controlling in every other way, and they may not want not to be married. So it's not necessarily safe to see something and straight away go, that's it, I'm leaving. So a lot of what I do with clients, some of the clients I work with, is create a safety plan. What does it look like? What does it feel like? And generally speaking, it means see, have you got access to any finances through any means? See what information do you need from the house by way of when you're physically there before you talk about leaving. Do you need any documents photocopied? Do you need any marriage certificate? What documents do you need that if things fell apart and you had to leave, what do you need to have in your future that you may not get back into the house to get? That's a really, really, really important thing. Do you need bank account numbers, details, that kind of thing? And the other thing would be, do you need to have any clothes in somebody else's house? Because you may have to leave in a hurry if there is something. And I mean, hopefully this never happens, but the reality is it does happen. So a safety plan and preparation, never underestimate the importance. It doesn't matter how long that takes, because when you need to go, you're as ready as you're ever going to be able to make it as good a start as possible. So it is really important that when you start to notice things, that you're wise with what you notice. The other thing I would say on that is do not feel the need to tell too many people. That is never a good idea. Keep it close. Do talk to one or two people, but keep it close because you never know who will talk to who. You don't know other people's stories and you don't know how something might get back to your partner, and that's not in your best interest. And that's just the other side of what I do, which is if there's any control or abuse in any situation, it will come into the other aspects. So being overcautious can never be underestimated.
Yeah. Yeah, we can't uh, emphasize that enough. Financial abuse is one piece and it's usually connected to other
Yeah,
pieces. It is not a standalone
yeah,
piece. And in my experience, it came from a lot of insecurity on that side, and other areas were affected by it. So yeah, it all comes from something else and it's all attached to something else. So we're not isolating it to that one thing. Obviously, this is a podcast about finances. That's why we're talking about it. But we wanted to acknowledge that it is a thing. And if it is another thing that is piling on to what is happening, it needs to be acknowledged. So I do want to add this. If you're listening, if you feel stuck, you're not alone. I've been there. Claire has been there. And the truth is, there is always a way forward, even if you can't see it yet. So, Claire, I know you do amazing work. I love talking to you. How can people get in touch with you if they want to talk to you, have a discovery call, just listen to you talk? Because we love the
there's
Irish
the
accent.
accent that's different to start with.
The accent.
I know. Well,
How do people get in touch with you?
I'm on social media. I'm on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. I have a website, which is claireauchmutycoaching.com, which we'll put in the show notes
Yes,
for
we
this.
will.
And on my website, there is a bookable Calendly link to book a free 45-minute discovery call that works with the time zones around the place. And in 45 minutes, I can see a lot because I know what to look for. And regardless of whether somebody works with me or not, they will leave that call with a direction to go and a few steps that they can take. So it is always worthwhile somebody making that call.
Wow. Awesome. Well, thank you for being here today. I am so excited to see you in New York in
I
a
know.
month. And
That's amazing.
yeah, we're going to party it up on Times Square. So
We absolutely are. I've never been to New York, so I am very, very excited. I
it's
know.
going to be wonderful.
Yeah.
I so appreciate you making time to be here with us today. And I love what you're doing for women and men across the board. And you're making an impact in your country because I know this isn't as talked about there as it is here.
No,
And
it's not.
when I was there and I spoke about finances and owning your power, I had so many people come up to me and talk about how needed this was there. So it is a conversation that needs to be had. I appreciate all the work that you're doing there and just thank you for stepping up, stepping out, and doing what you do.
Thank you. Well, when I start my podcast, you're coming on as a guest
Yes.
because you do what I don't, which is take somebody and help them to elevate up their finances and their knowledge and their skills and start to have financial security again. And that is, I mean, what I do is part of a piece. It's part of somebody's journey, and then I can hand them over to you. So
Perfect.
thank you for the opportunity. It's been absolutely wonderful.
We're a great team. All right.
Yeah.
We'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
This conversation is important. It's one I wish that someone had had with me years ago. Financial abuse is real, it's damaging, but it's not the end of your story. If anything from today resonated with you, know that you are not crazy, you're not alone, and you have options. I want to thank Claire for joining me and for the incredible work that she is doing to give people clarity, courage, and a safe place to rebuild their lives. If this episode spoke to you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And as always, remember that wealth is not just about money in the bank. It is about freedom and confidence and creating a life that you truly own. So until next time, keep building your empire. If this lit something up, share it, review it, and get in the room. Join the Expand Your Empire community and start turning wisdom into wealth. You're not too late, and you're not doing this alone.